The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello again, Hoop Ball Lakers family, and welcome to another solo edition of the podcast. I am your host, JC DeLeon. Ethan and I will be back for a duo pod very soon, and thank you very much for listening to this episode. Well, the optics of the NBA standings board do not look very good at the moment. Our defending champion Los Angeles Lakers have slid all the way down to number 5 with a 32-20 record. They are still without LeBron James and Anthony Davis and have even more injuries to deal with that we'll talk about here in the next few minutes. It's not all bright and sunny days in La La Land right now, but all is not lost at the moment. Though we don't know when LeBron and AD will be back, we do know that the staple of this championship team, the thing that binds together most championship teams, has not waned, and that is defense. This team still ranks number 2 in opponent points per game, number 8 in point differential, and number 4 in opponent rebounds. The problem is, without LeBron and AD, is the offense. They're on fire some nights like they were against Toronto, and just abysmal on other nights like they were versus the Clippers. There's also just too much inconsistency right now. Like last night versus Miami, KCP went off and had a great game, but he was pretty much the only one. Now, while all 5 starters did hit double figures, problem was turnovers. 22 turnovers. I'm not sure how many points off turnovers Miami got, but I know that at some points of the game, it was tied as high as 80-80, and as soon as it was tied 80-80, the Lakers turned the ball over a few more times, and before you knew it, it was 90-82. And from then on out, the Lakers just didn't really have a chance. They were playing pretty well against Miami, but Miami just had too much firepower. And, you know, they were excited for the win. They were excited to get revenge on the champions that beat them last season, though it should come with some perspective. So we mentioned KCP had a great game this one. He went off for 28 points. Made 6 threes, shot 11 of them, grabbed 4 rebounds, got a steal. He was great. Did have 1 turnover, but given the situation of the whole team, 1 turnover is not that bad in almost 40 minutes. Dennis Schroeder, while he only had 10 points, he did dish out 14 assists, grabbed 6 rebounds, and a steal, but 7 turnovers for our guy Dennis Schroeder. Marquis Morris hit double figures, which is always great to see. He had 12 points, grabbed 3 rebounds, got a steal and a block, but he also had 3 turnovers. Every Laker that played last night had at least 1 turnover, except for one guy who's going to get a lot of mention in this episode. Wesley Matthews hit for double figures. That's always great to see. He put up 8 3-point shot attempts, made 3 of them. Got 2 steals, got a block, got an assist, got a rebound, got a little bit of everything out of Wesley Matthews, which is fantastic to see. Andre Drummond finally had a chance to play a decent amount of minutes. Played 26 minutes, 51 seconds, shot 5 for 9. How about this? Shot 5 for 6 from free throw. Don't know how well overall this season. He is shooting 62.5% from free throw, which is not ideal. But when you figure at the lowest point in his career, he was shooting 35%. For him to go 5 for 6 last night is pretty fantastic. And he did grab 12 rebounds, 4 of them offensive. Dished out 3 assists. One thing I've noticed about Andre Drummond is, for a big man, he's not just a willing passer. He actually can find some pretty decent angles to find, can hit some pretty decent angles to find open 3-point shooters, which is really interesting to see. You're not going to see them run the offense through him the way they do Marc Gasol, and you're not going to see Andre Drummond make nifty passes on back cuts the way Marcus Gasol can. But Andre Drummond's a more than capable passer as a big man, and that's really great to see. He also got 2 steals, didn't get any blocks, but 3 turnovers. Turnovers for a guy, Andre Drummond, in what is de facto his debut. He didn't get injured. He did go to the locker room at one point, but he came back, played pretty well. I think, like we said before, you're not going to focus on Andre Drummond being the main guy on this team. Once LeBron and Anthony Davis do come back, he'll make a fantastic third, maybe even fourth piece behind Dennis Schroeder. So how'd the bench do? Well, the bench had some turnovers too. They only played 4 guys off of the bench, so 9 deep for this team, which, considering that LeBron and AD were out, and this lineup already did play 9 guys, this is pretty much an 11, 12 person deep team. And yeah, that's going to be hell to contend with in the playoffs. Alex Caruso, great defensive game. A lot of intangibles. Did a lot of the things that you don't see on the stat sheet. But even then, 6 assists, 1 steal, 2 rebounds, only had 5 points. But he did make a 3, and he has been making his 3-point shot lately. Montrezl Harrell, 10 points. We're used to seeing a little bit more points out of him, but he did grab 9 rebounds, 2 steals, and assists, but 3 turnovers for Montrezl, 2 for Caruso. Alfonso McKinney played 12 minutes, got 4 points, got a really nice dunk on a fast break. 1 turnover for him, 1 rebound, and that's about it. The 9th guy off the bench is the newest addition to the Los Angeles Lakers. Fresh off the buyout market from the Houston Rockets, Ben McLemore. Played 17 minutes, shot 1 for 4, 2 rebounds, no steals, no blocks, no assists, but also more importantly, no turnovers. Now he did, score 6 points in that 17 minutes, shot 4 for 4 from free throw. So, pretty nice debut for him. I don't know how many minutes are really in the rotation for him, but we'll talk more about Ben McLemore here later on tonight. But not a bad debut for newest addition of the Lakers squad, Ben McLemore. But I think the biggest takeaway from a game like this, throughout the Lakers run without LeBron and Anthony Davis, there have been some kind of expected losses, I guess. Phoenix is turning out to be a legitimately great team. That should have been a loss. Lakers really shouldn't have lost to the Pelicans the way they did, giving up so many points. Because when you score 111, you should be able to hold them to maybe a little bit less than that. I felt like the Lakers played pretty well against Philadelphia. Played about as well as they could have against the Bucks. Really, the only terribly abysmal game was versus the Clippers. But this game last night versus the Heat, they're without LeBron James. They're without Anthony Davis. You'll notice I didn't mention Kyle Kuzma or Marcus Gasol or Talen Horton-Tucker. Talen Horton-Tucker was suspended for his role in the fracas versus Toronto. Marcus Gasol is either resting or might have a lingering injury, and Kyle Kuzma had a calf injury, and so he didn't play. But despite that, the Lakers were in this game the whole time. They were leading at halftime. They, as high as 80 all, the game was tied. The Lakers were always in this. They were never fully counted out. They played great defensively. It's just, offensively, they had a lot of turnovers. And if that can be managed, if that can be handled efficiently, once this team does come back to full strength, they're still going to be one of the best teams in the league, easily, if not the best. And so, while things do look bleak right now, overall, I'm not too worried. I know if the Lakers do end up finishing around that 5 seed, a seed that low has never won a championship. But I also don't think that any team that could potentially win a championship has faced a situation like this Los Angeles team with the shortened off season, the types of injuries to 2 stars, and then injuries to other players that play a key role on this team. This team is dealing with a lot, as I know a lot of NBA teams are. But yeah, overall, I'm not too worried about the status of this team and how they might do come playoff time. But on to the new Lakers. So we mentioned how last night was really kind of the first chance we got to take a really good look at Andre Drummond, because he didn't have to leave the game with injury. He after his debut, he got stepped on and had to have his entire big toenail removed, which I looked up is actually a pretty debilitating injury. Although I guess professional basketball players deal with that before. He said it's happened to him before. He came back in 2 games. Yeah, 15 points and 12 rebounds is nothing to sneeze at. It might be about what he averages. I'm pretty confident he can average double-digit rebounds and double-digit points, so I think you can pencil in a double-double for him. I think there'll be nights where he can go out. He could potentially go off for 25, 30 points, 15 rebounds. What I've noticed, and what he's been capable of, he's got pretty good handles for a guy his size. And haven't really seen a lot of that. He does look to be a little bit out of shape, and so I think once he plays himself into shape, you'll start to see some of the agileness that he's capable of. And yeah, the agility and the rim protecting we haven't really quite seen as of yet, but I think that comes with being in more or better basketball shape. And right now he just doesn't. I know he said he's been working out since he sort of took time away from Cleveland and they were working on his buyout, but yeah, he doesn't quite look to be 100% in shape yet. And Ben McLemore, even though he didn't play a whole lot last night, let's kind of take a look at what he's done this season. So last season for Houston, he was a part-time starter. He started some games, didn't start all games, played in 71 games, started 23 of them. He scored 10 points per game, shot 40% from 3. For his career, he shoots 36.2%, so it's a pretty good 3-point shooter. Gets an okay amount of rebounds, doesn't get a lot of rebounds, doesn't get a lot of assists, doesn't get a lot of steals. So he's pretty much a shooting specialist for this team. But he does have some defensive capability. And he's a long and lean body. And what I've said time and time again is I believe in Frank Vogel's ability to scheme defensively for the abilities of his players. I think he can put his players in the position to succeed defensively. I feel like he's done that for guys like Dennis Schroeder. I think Caruso's having a fantastic season. This being his second season under Frank Vogel, and we liked Alex Caruso a lot when Luke Walton was the coach. And yeah, I just think under Frank Vogel, Alex Caruso has stepped his game up so much that he's become such an important part of this team. Yeah, I think he's a shining example of what a player can be in Frank Vogel's scheme defensively. And I think Ben McLemore will fit into that mold really well. And I also do think that it's not a coincidence that in his first game, KCP alongside him played really well. And yeah, to look at Ben's numbers this season, so he's had 8 games in which he's made 3 or more 3-point attempts. He's hit for 20 points or more twice. Yeah, I just think he's going to be a really great addition to this team, and I think he's going to work out really well. in addition to not just his potential capability, he has talked about how much he's going to really enjoy playing with LeBron James. Should be mentioned, he's a clutch client, and when he was drafted 7th, LeBron did send out a tweet back then saying people were sleeping on Ben McLemore, as he was drafted from Kansas, drafted by the Sacramento Kings. And so, Kansas Jayhawks, that's a really great basketball program. He's obviously someone who can play. But, yeah, he's quoted as saying, obviously it was a great feeling, great situation for me and my family. He thinks he made the right decision. He's thrilled and happy to be a part of Laker Nation. But he's really excited about playing with LeBron James. Being a clutch client, he's obviously familiar with LeBron and knows him. He also went on to say, quote, "It's another great feeling just to be able to play with the best player in the world, LeBron James and Anthony Davis and all these guys. To put on this Laker uniform is going to be something fun and exciting." And yeah, I do think he's going to acclimate really well. I think he's somebody who is a great addition to what LeBron brings to the table. And with that, we are going to move on to the final segment of the show. It's going to hurt, but we got to do it. We got to look at the 2021 NBA standings. And for the most part, they haven't changed up top in the West. Utah is pretty much running away with the best record in the league, doing it kind of quietly so. I felt like Utah had this capability last season. I was really worried about them, and they seem to be putting it together this year. They're the number 1 seed in the West at 39-13. Phoenix, people are starting to pay attention to Phoenix, and Chris Paul is starting to get some MVP consideration, and rightly so, because I didn't think Phoenix would still be in this position. I thought they were lightning in a bottle with Chris Paul, but he seems to be the catalyst to their ascension in the 2 seed at 36-15. Clippers are about where I thought they'd be. I thought they'd hover around that 3 spot at 35-18. Denver's on the come up at 33-18. Jokic has been playing really well. They've had some injuries to deal with, but they also picked up Aaron Gordon at the trading deadline. And I think Aaron Gordon's going to work out really well for that Denver team. As I mentioned earlier, our Lakers are number 5, 32-20. Portland nipping at our heels, 30-21 at 6. Dallas looks to be firmly in the playoff picture at 29-22. When it seemed like early in the season they may not even make the playoffs, they're pretty much going to be in there now. And Memphis at the 8th seed at 26-23. They have to contend with the likes of the San Antonio Spurs at 24-25. The Golden State Warriors at 24-27. I think that 8th spot is going to come down to a 3-team race between Memphis, San Antonio, and Golden State, and that leaves the New Orleans Pelicans at 11 outside of the playoff picture. Sacramento at 12 at 22-30. OKC, Houston, and Minnesota round out the bottom of your standings. Over in the East, Brooklyn, not exactly running away with it, and they've had a ton of injuries to deal with, but it doesn't really matter because they're so stacked and so loaded. LaMarcus Aldridge has been playing really well for that team. 36-16, they're your number 1 team in the East. Philadelphia at 35-16 is number 2. Milwaukee playing consistently well at 3 at 32-19. Which, 32-19, the Lakers, 32-20, the Lakers are 5, 32-19, Milwaukee's 3. While the East is better, they're certainly still more advantageous as far as when it comes to the records. Charlotte, they lost LaMelo Ball for the year, but they're still holding on strong to that number 4 seed at 26-24. Atlanta, 27-25 in the 5 spot. Miami, 27-25. man, I don't know if Miami's coming or going. I thought they picked up a really great addition in Victor Oladipo. I thought he was going to be fantastic for this team. They're still a little wishy-washy. Boston. No idea what's going on in Boston. They're your 7th seed at 26 and 26. Nothing is going right for them. It doesn't appear as though Brad Stevens is long for that job, though at one point I know people were considering him to be a true and absolute genius. I don't know what's happening in Boston. The Knicks were riding high at one point. They were, I think, a 4 or a 5 seed, and now dropped down to the 8 at 25 and 27. Knicks are a really good defensive team. Don't let that losing record fool you. They're a great defensive team. Indianapolis, I mean, I could see fighting for a playoff spot, but it feels as though the top 8 in the East is pretty much set. It's just which teams are going to sit in which spot once it's all said and done. Chicago at 22 and 28. Toronto in the 11th seed, 20 and 32. They seem to be fully out of it. And then rounding at the bottom, Cleveland, Washington, Orlando, and Detroit. So that's going to pretty much do it for this edition of the Hoopball Lakers pod. Once again, I'm your host, JC DeLeon. You can find me on Twitter at JCDeLeon1. You can find Ethan on Twitter at Ethan_Noroff. Follow the show at Hoopball Lakers. Follow the account at Hoopball Tweets for all of the different Hoopball accounts that we've got. We've got a ton of different team Hoopball accounts. Sign up for the Brews letter, all that good stuff. Sign up for the Wager Pass. It'll make you some money. And until next time, we are out.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.